Hey, it's me, Bob83, and welcome to my first RareWare Retrospective review, starting with Donkey Kong Country. If you haven't seen my introduction review, I recommend that you do so because it provides backstory on RareWare, on the company itself, and an idea of how my review is going to go compared to my usual reviews and how different it's going to be. So, with that out of the way, let's begin with this backstory on Donkey Kong himself. Now everybody knows who Donkey Kong is. He really need no introduction, but let's give him one anyways. In 1981, the Donkey Kong arcade game was released. You play as Jumpman, who everybody now known as Super Mario, who needs to rescue Pauline from the giant ape Donkey Kong. It was created by Shigeru Miyamoto, who also made the Super Mario series, Legend of Zelda, Star Fox, and many other franchises with Nintendo. The game, of course, was a huge success, even overcoming a lawsuit from Universal Studios, and spawns a few sequels, starting with Donkey Kong Jr., where you play as Donkey Kong's son, who you need to rescue his dad from Mario, who is the antagonist of the game. This is probably the only time where Mario is the bad guy, in the video game at least. And finally, we got Donkey Kong 3, where you play as Stanley the Bagman, and the objective of this game is, try not to laugh, is to stop Donkey Kong by spraying his butt all the way to the top while avoiding insects that are trying to attack you. Now, this is easily the most forgettable of the trilogy, and that's not counting Donkey Kong Jr. Math. This is a game I really don't want to talk about. Now, ever since then, Donkey Kong has never really appeared on any console until they bought RareWare and gave them the job of making a brand new Donkey Kong, where Donkey Kong is the protagonist, and instead of this arcade reach to the top kind of gameplay that you see here, we get a traditional platformer kind of similar to Super Mario, and let's see how they did. This is Donkey Kong Country. I am playing the virtual console version, as well as the other two Donkey Kong Country games. And a quick reminder, I'm going to play through each world. I'm not going to tell you about every single level system one that kind of stands out. And when I finish the game, I get my final thoughts in the aftermath. So let's begin. The first level of this game, and it begins with Donkey Kong bursting out his treehouse ready to play. And if you enter to the hole to the bottom left, you can see Donkey Kong Banana Horde is stolen. The story of the game is King K. Rool and his criminals stole all of Donkey Kong's banana, and it's up for Donkey and Diddy to get them back. Now, this is a side-scroller platformer, and both Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong has unique abilities, but mostly the same. Donkey Kong is the most stronger, and he can destroy bigger enemies pretty easily, while Diddy Kong is the smaller but can jump higher than Donkey Kong and reach platform that Donkey Kong may not be able to get. Now, you collect a bunch of these bananas, and if you get 100 of them, you get an extra life. You can also get extra life by getting those balloons. And of course, one more thing to mention, that you can get an animal buddy. In this level, it's Remy the Rhino, and if you play Super Mario World, he acts pretty much similar to Yoshi. Well, Remy can just run into enemies and destroy them easily like that. And if you get hit while you're riding on Remy, Remy runs away, but you can be able to get him back if you jump right back on him. Level number 2, and we already get a change in the weather. That's really the only thing noteworthy about this level. But as long as we're talking about graphics, the graphics looks pretty great. Now, of course, compared to the game's graphics we get right now, this looks pretty standard and still, pretty nice to look at. But keep in mind, this is for the Super Nintendo, a 16-bit machine, And according to that documentary I showed earlier in this video, one of the developers said that it can do 32-bit, kind of similar to the Super FX chip, but this one was done by Silicon Graphics, and it looks pretty amazing, and I really like how the level is designed in this game. After that level, you pay a visit to Cranky Kong, who pretty much helps you give you hints of how to complete a level, find some bonus areas, and also for wisecracking at Donkey Kong, pretty much saying how games these days are pretty easy. I recommend giving him a visit in each world. He always got something interesting to say. Level 4 of World 1, you get the underwater area. Now, ignoring the fact that apes can't swim underwater, this is pretty funny now to think about it, since RareWare pretty much went to the zoo and studied apes' movements. And, well, I guess when they got to the underwater part and figured out that apes can't swim underwater, just to say, screw it, we're just going to do it anyways. But anyways, we also get the first introduction of another Donkey Kong animal buddy, and that's Unguard the Swordfish, or Martin to be technical. He pretty much works the same as Remy the Rhino, but underwater. And that's pretty much it for that level. Next, we got our first appearance of Funky Kong. Now, Funky Kong is able to transport you from one world to another whenever you want, or wherever you get to his area at least. Now, of course, in the first world, he won't have any use here, but I did use him a few times. I don't really care about his ability, but I really liked the character when I was a kid, because I was into the Surfer Dude gimmick. But for the most part, I didn't really use him that much. Now, the one thing I like about Donkey Kong Country is all the secret areas you can find. Now, usually most of the secret areas will lead you to a little bonus room, but other times it can give you shortcuts, like in this level over here, that can pretty much get you halfway through the game very quickly, though these are rare and pretty much hard to come by. Finally, we get the appearance of the last Kong member, Candy Kong, who pretty much saves the game for you, and that's pretty much it. Finally, we get to our first boss. It's a giant beaver named Very Naughty, and pretty much RareWare likes to make jokes like that, and this won't be the last time you're ever going to see a joke like that. This giant beaver is pretty easy. He just jump around, just jump on him 3 times, and you beat the level, and on to World 2. Now on to World 2, Monkey Mines here at level 1, where we get my first introduction of Winky the Frog. I'm pretty sure you can get him early on, but Winky the Frog pretty much jumps pretty high, allow you to reach places you normally can't get. Of course, has the same effect right there as once you get hit, you lose him, unless you can jump right back on him, but in this case I didn't. Now Monkey Mines World 2 is pretty much lots of dark places, so pretty much this is the theme here. And this level is pretty average, nothing special, but wait till you get later on to the road. And by later on, I mean the next level. Level 2, the minecart level, probably the most memorable level for every gamer and every fan of Donkey Kong Country. As a kid, this was like one of the most fun levels ever, but playing this right now, when I recorded this, it was kind of one of the frustrating levels, and I don't remember being very frustrating, but it was still fun. Nonetheless, don't get me wrong, it's just that every time I do something wrong, I either mistime a jump or pretty much don't remember when one of those criminals in the minecarts would come, and I didn't have enough time to react. But for the most part, it's still a fun level, but man, I lost a lot of life in this level. After using so many lives, I managed to find 3 animal tokens. Whenever you find 3 of a certain animal, you press that animal and you pretty much be transported to a bonus room, and every 100 tokens you collect, you gain extra life. These are really helpful, and those tokens respawns in every level. So, well, I don't encourage to die too much, but if you happen to see one nearby and pretty much have at least one on hand, I recommend, getting that token, dying once, and getting that token again, so you can get like about 3 or 4 extra life. Other than that, there's nothing really to talk about in level 3. It's just another generic cave level. Level 4, Stop and Go Station, aka screw this, I'm taking the shortcut level. Just turn around and you'll be transported to near the end of the level. Okay, to be serious, this is a pretty fun level. In this level, you pretty much have these barrels that says stop and go. You touch them to stop it, and it will stop these crocodile creatures that's indestructible. Except if you live in Japan, there's only one way to destroy them, and that's to use Donkey Kong handset while they are in the fetal position. This level also shows that how creative RareWare can be in their level, and you figure this out through the rest of the game. And you know what level would be great filled in a world with dark caves and dark places? An Aztec temple. Yeah, this is one of the most out of place level in this world, and well, heads up, this won't be the last time. But despite that, it is a pretty nice area to look at, and I had a feeling that RareWare wanted to make a world for these, but didn't have the time to. But still, this is pretty out of place, and it's one of the things that kind of annoys me. But for the most part, it's a fun level. We reached the boss of World 2, and it's a giant bird. And excuse me if I stutter a bit, because describing as a tech, it's kind of ridiculous, but this bird coughs up nuts to attack you. All you have to do is avoid it and jump on its head about, I think, 3 times in this one, and you win. World 2 overall, it was definitely a fun world. Even though I'm not a big fan of dark places, I was enjoying this level and wanted to play more, especially as a kid. So after that, we're on to World 3. Now on to the first level of World 3, which is the Forest World. And you can see how detailed the graphics really is in this forest level. Well, at least detail back when this first came out. It still looks pretty nice even to this day. Well, at least I think so, but that may be just nostalgia speaking to me. And well, to be honest, I think I'll go skip most of this part of World 3 at least. Mainly because there's really nothing much memorable, but you know what, let's see what happens. Level 2 is slightly better than level 1, mainly because of its treehouse atmosphere and the barrel gimmick, where you have to time your barrel shots in the exact right time to the other barrel, or else you fall off the platform altogether. This shows how RareWare likes to work each gimmick that they have and make almost every level pretty unique. They could have just easily just make it a generic platform based on the pretty much the 3D model by itself, and probably still would have done pretty well, but RareWare actually took the time and make each level memorable, for better for worse. Hey, you know what level would fit great in a level 4 forest? An Aztec temple. That we got another one of those. And this one, you pretty much have to avoid these beavers in this giant wheel thing, and that's pretty much the whole gimmick of the level. Just make it faster than that beaver. Level 5 is where I get Expression the Ostrich. Granted, not the first time I got this animal Betty, but especially Ostrich pretty much is the worst character in this game and never really made another appearance. Especially Ostrich pretty much give you extra jump, can hover a bit, and is probably the fastest animal Betty out there. But the major drawback is that you can't really attack enemy with that animal Betty. So that's why I consider him the worst animal Betty in this game. We reached the boss of World 3, and it's a giant bee. All I have to do is throw the barrel at it and avoid it stinging while it's invincible. And it's a pretty easy boss battle. Yeah, at this point, I pretty much figured out that pretty much every boss battle is going to be a giant generic enemy of some sort. And World 3 is a pretty forgettable level. Nothing really impresses me about this world. But unfortunately, World 4 is going to be more frustrating than ever. On to World 4, Gorilla Glacier. Pretty much an ice world, every platformer's worst nightmare. Going to level 1 of this game, it's pretty weird seeing all these cold-blooded animals like the crocodiles, insects like the giant bees, and these birds enemies in a frozen climate. But despite that, this is probably one of the frustrating worlds in this game. The first level is pretty, I guess, a pretty jump in difficulty. At first, it seems like the only problem is to avoid the slippery ice that cause you to easily run into enemies and fall off the platform. But later on in the game, it starts to get pretty snowy and need to use these barrels to get across the level. At one point, Rare even thought this level was hard. And I'm not saying this is proof, but in one part of the level, I mistimed my barrel shot and I accidentally find a shortcut that is me near the end of the level. Fun fact, RareWare was going to make this game harder, but thanks to Shigeru Miyamoto, he decided to step in and told Rare to make this game much easier for the casual audience. Level 2 of World 4 has to be the most beautiful level in this game. You're pretty much in this ice cave, and I'm not sure if the background is crystal or pretty much icicles that looks like crystal, but still, this is the most beautiful level in this game. The gimmick in this level is there are these ropes that makes you go up and down. It depends on the color. I believe purple makes you go down and light blue makes you go up. If there's any difference in the color, I'm a bit colorblind, but pretty much in this world, this is my favorite level both to look at and to play. And you know it would be great in this level full of ice, an Aztec temple. Now I'm just kidding you, it's a cave level in level 4, where we get our first introduction of Squawks the parrot. Now Squawks, I believe this is the only time he's playable in this game. I don't recall any other time using him. But he will have a much bigger role in the later Donkey Kong Country series. But in this game, he's just a flashlight helping you get through this level. As for the Aztec temple thing, this is the last time you're ever going to see an Aztec temple in this game. I'm skipping most of the level in this world and on to the boss battle, which is the giant beaver again. The only thing different about the giant beaver compared to the first world giant beaver is that every time you hit him, he does this high jump where he always jumps to your current position, just move out of the way, and the boss battle should be pretty easy. Yeah, at this point I realized RareWare's out of ideas for boss battles using the same enemies over again. And this is really one of the weak point of RareWare, at least in the Donkey Kong Country game. But for the most part, all the levels is pretty much the spotlight, providing interesting gimmick, maybe not in every level, but in at least a couple of each world. World 5 is the factory chest polluted part levels, and from this point on, I feel like the game is becoming trial and error. By that I mean that I need to memorize which enemy will spawn rare, because sometimes they spawn in the most inconvenient moments, cause you to take a hit and have little to no time to prepare for their appearance. Now granted, it's not as hard to say Battletoads or Ghosts and Goblins, but still, I feel like from starting from World 5 and then on out, the game's kind of becoming pretty cheap, and I wouldn't say completely unfair, but it will catch you off guard. Level 2 have you traveling on this moving platform, and the trick is to avoid these enemies, but the machine that you're traveling on have different speeds, and it goes fast or slow depending on which area you go on. It can be quite tricky, but for the most part it is kind of a fun level to play on. Level 4 of World 5 is a minecart level. I'm pretty surprised that RareWare didn't make a whole lot of these levels. I believe there's only 2 minecart levels in this game, but either way, this one's obviously harder than the first one, being that we're in World 5. And the gimmick in this one is that you gotta jump from one minecart to another. This could be pretty frustrating. Again, this is the part of the game where I feel like it's trial and error and memorization. But for the most part, it's actually a pretty fun level, and I kind of wish RareWare made a bit more of the minecart levels. Now, Blackout Factory is one of the most interesting levels in this world. The gimmick is that the lights go on and off for a few seconds, and you gotta memorize where every enemy's at and where the platform's at. It may seem unfair at first, but it's actually not a pretty hard level. It's mostly based on memorization, and again, this is the trial and error thing that I was talking about. And I'm surprised they didn't bring this back in other Donkey Kong Country games, though I haven't played Donkey Kong Country 3 completely yet, so I could be wrong on that. But I'm pretty sure there isn't a level like that in Donkey Kong Country 2. But for the most part, this is probably the most interesting level in World 5. I tell you what's not an interesting idea is this boss battle, which is a giant barrel. Now, you know you're running out of ideas if the most interesting boss battle you can think of is a giant barrel. In fact, only you can even call this a boss battle. All he does is go up and down and then toss some generic enemies at you, and that's it. After that, he's just pretty much self-destruct. So this is probably the worst boss, no doubt, in this game. And on to the last world, World 6. Level 1 of World 6 have you collecting barrels of fuel to keep your platform moving. If you run out of fuel, the platform will fall off and most likely you will die to your doom. Now this level is all fine and dandy, but there's like one part of this level that's really cheap. There's a spell near the end of the level. Now if you take the spell, it will lead you to near the exit. Now usually that'd be a good thing, but for some reason Donkey Kong will have this depressed expression and you will lose a life and have to return to the checkpoint. Now I'm not sure why the game does that. The game doesn't tell me that I need to take this platform near the end of the level, so I find that to be cheap and mostly confusing. Next is this on-off switch gimmick again, where you have to hit the barrel to turn on the lights for a moment at a time to see the platform. And there's also these small crocodile enemies that also jump when you jump. They don't jump as high as you, so you're able to hit them in the air, but you still have the time to jump correctly. This is probably one of the most fun levels, and at this point I realized that World 6, all the level designs are pretty much docking. There's really no color to it, therefore this is probably the most boring level design in this game, but at the same time it's one of the most fun, and definitely better than World 5, where that one, in fact, is mostly cheap. Well, this one does got cheap moments. It's at least fair and fun to play as. The boss battle of World 6 is pretty much the same battle in the one of World 2, except every time you hit him, he starts coughing of multiple nets, which is pretty difficult to dodge for the first time, but once you get the pattern down, it's a pretty easy boss battle, and that's pretty much it. We're off to the final boss of this game, and it's King K. Rool. King K. Rool is the hardest boss of this game, though compared to the other bosses in this game, that's not really saying much. He got multiple phases of attacks. His first phase is drawing his crown. All he has to do is avoid that and jump on his head and avoid his running. And then after you hit him a few times, you're off to phase 2. Avoid his cannon that has a pretty easy pattern to figure out, and again jump on his head once he draws his crown again. After hitting him a few times in his second phase, you get the fake credit ending. I find this pretty humorous. It's pretty funny. It's obvious because most of the C's are replaced as K's, and all the credits go to all the generic enemies, and of course King K. Rool. And after the credit ends, which is a pretty short second, King K. Rool get back up, and you have to face his third phase. In his third phase, he just jumps around, and you gotta avoid his jumping. And again, once he draws his crown, hit him a few times, and that should be the end of the game. His boss battle is pretty much trial and error and memorization. It's not difficult, but I died a few times because I never really faced him before and not familiar with his pattern, but his pattern is pretty easy to figure out. And once you defeat him, it's kind of satisfying, but for the most part, just give my overall thoughts on this game. So how will the Donkey Kong Country do? It's actually one of the top 5 best-selling games on the Super Nintendo. At number 5 is Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, which sold about 4 million. Number 4 is Street Fighter 2, World Tour 2. Number 3 is Super Mario Kart, which sold about 8 million. Number 2, our game that we're talking about right now, Donkey Kong Country, which sold about 10 million give or take. And number 1 is, of course, Super Mario World, which sold over 20 million. It did very well, and no surprise, it's got a sequel. As for the game itself, it was a pretty good game when I played through it. It's not as great when I first played it when I was a little kid, but I still recommend giving it a try anyway. The beginning of the game was very fun. I loved the platforming and the use of the animal buddies. The other half of the game, however, was pretty much trial and error, but I still had fun with the new gimmick at each stage. The only downside about this game is that the boss battles are pretty forgettable. But thanks for bearing 30 minutes of me. I know I have a lot of improvement to do, but with your help, I know we can make this show much better. This is me, Baba33, and next time we're going to talk about Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy Kong's Quest. And it's one of my favorite games, or is it? Well, tune in to find out.